quick disclaimer, we are not Microsoft. If you want a 100% confirmed opinion from Microsoft, go to Microsoft, check Microsoft product terms, but we're not responsible for this. This is our experience. Take it all with a pinch of salt. This is our advice, which is coined, in the very hot furnace of Microsoft licensing. Microsoft product terms, where you can find them. Just Google Microsoft product terms. Easy as that. And it'll take you to this website, where then you can check all the Microsoft licensing terms yourself. I encourage you to do so. You can't be a Microsoft licensing expert or Microsoft licensing consultant or even a procurement person that understands Microsoft licensing if you don't periodically go to that website and check the updates and see what's going on and get yourself familiar with the Microsoft licensing lingo. We try to simplify it, but they still talk that lingo that's on that website. So please go to that website. Prashant, Vijay, hello. hello. Good evening. Right, moving on to the actual training. So, what is Microsoft Desktop Licensing? It's all in the name. It's what's on the desktops. It's what on the desktops, or also, we'll get to that, in virtual desktops, remotely accessed desktops, your end user programs. So if you think about the IT department, desktops are usually taken care of by the end user compute department in IT. And in many cases, that end user compute even has its own, if it's a large company, has its own procurement. It has its own licensing people. And they take care of counting the users, counting the required licenses. They're not even connected to the server department. They should be, because there are licenses on this slide, that's the last line, client access licenses, that are counted per users and devices, but they exist in the server realm. So you need to communicate. The server department and the end user compute department, the desktop department, you need to communicate, because CALs, server people may not understand how you're counting users and desktops. I've seen this happening. And you need to understand what client access license you need for what service as well. So you can't just exist in a complete isolation. And there's also modern desktops. So there are two types of desktops we'll talk about. So these days, modern desktop, that's on the right of this slide, on the right side of this slide, is an actual term. This is how Microsoft calls its 365 offerings, modern desktop. There is no such term as traditional desktops, but I'm going to be using this throughout this presentation. It used to be called Productivity Suite, Productivity Applications, Office Applications, many other names. The easiest right now, and you can't just call it, some call it perpetual license. They may not be perpetual. So let's just agree to call it all what we used to have, and still some companies run on the, in our cases, in our customer base, and SAMexpert, all of our customers have some sort of traditional Office, traditional Windows, traditional CALs. They haven't yet all switched 100% to Office 365. So you're going to work with this. And there are some countries, even in Europe, that are very hesitant to really, let me put it in the Microsoft licensing. The penetration of Office 365 is not that good. They're still using the traditional desktop licenses. And by the way, in the European Union, you can still buy Office Professional Plus and Standard on the second-hand market. So there are, and it's a very lucrative market. So billions of dollars in that business. You can then imagine how many companies are still keen to use the previous licenses. So this is why we're going to be talking not just about the brand, brave new world of Office 365, which we covered in more detail in the last live, but also about the traditional Office licenses. And you can see that, anyhow, they're very similar. They almost reflect each other. So you have Windows 10 per device in the traditional licensing on this side, and then you have Windows 10 per user in online. I think with an option also per device as well. So that it's another option. Office Project and Visio on this side, Office 365 Project Online, Visio Online this side, and CALs and client access licenses in the traditional desktop, and CAL equivalents, CAL bridges, so client access license equivalency in the modern desktop. And they also in many cases, they work one on top of another with so-called add-ons. So it's a very complex world. If somebody tells you Microsoft desktop licensing is simple, so I thought, you know what, this is going to be the easiest training for me because, well, it's just Windows, it's just Office, and then I decided to relearn it again just to catch up with, you know, what's happened, what I probably forgot, you know, the scenarios I haven't seen. God forbid, I mean, I didn't sleep tonight. Just to give you a perspective, I didn't sleep tonight because I was redoing and adding stuff and thinking how to actually explain this incredibly complex and incredibly entangled licensing for just this product, in the most simple way for you today.
Alex, if I may just add on, if you can go back, I just want to add on, because a lot of people have already moved their mindset to the modern desktop and neglecting the licensing implications of the traditional desktop. So I know that we're all moving, and 365 is definitely the main route going forward. But still, statistically, traditional or on-premise is still 30 to 40% of all installations. And if you take it to the next step and you look at hybrid models, organizations that are using both modern desktop and the traditional, that statistic actually goes up to around 50-55%. So we're still in a mixed mode, and we're going to be in a mixed mode for at least 3 to 5 years. So we can't neglect the traditional and just talk about modern. We still need to manage both in parallel.
Thank you, Daryl. We have Alvaro from Mexico City. Good morning, Alvaro. I think it's pretty early. Is it about 8 a.m. in Mexico right now? Please let us know. So you can also acquire these licenses as bundles, and you can still acquire the desktop bundles. They're still available. So there are, for traditional desktops, there are professional desktop and enterprise desktop, and we'll touch on them in the end of this training. So we have a few slides about bundles, what's included, how they work. And in the modern desktop, obviously, you should have heard the name Microsoft 365, which combines all the online offerings in a few various Microsoft 365 plans, which we covered in a bit more detail. I just want to tell you that in the third part of this training. This is the fourth part of the training already. So please don't jump off. Please don't, just immediately run and watch the third one. Please watch today's live, because this is interactive. You have an ability to talk to us, to ask your questions. Ask any questions in the chat. We will answer your questions. If we cannot answer them, somebody in the audience may help you. Daryl also usually is very active in the chat while I'm talking. Otherwise he'll get bored, because he knows licensing pretty well. So yeah, Alvaro just said it's 8 a.m. No worries, Alvaro. Yeah, thank you for your thanks. I've just lost my thought anyway. So let's move on. And why, see this little note in the end. Why would you buy them as bundles? So people would say, because it's easy. So man, it's all balderdash. The reason people buy these discounts is because this bundles is because they discounted. So one word of warning, which is not on this slide, is check if it's actually cheaper. Not just company wide, but check for users various scenarios which are allowed by the agreements, which are, by the way, part number 2 of the training, and see maybe it's cheaper to debundle. Maybe it makes more sense to buy it on the certain components of desktop licenses, or online services. Usually for online services, debundling saves money. But you may also go with the bundles anyway. So the problem with the desktop licensing is that when you only think about traditional on-premise model, let's say I joined IT 20 plus years ago, and what we had service in our server room. It wasn't even like a data center. It was a server room with a conditioner in it. And we had desktops on which people were, salespeople were working, designers, consultants, and there was no online, there was no remote access. It was just on-premise on devices, and that was simple. So if we go back to that model, that is actually pretty simple. So it's not rocket science, but unfortunately, or fortunately, we also have deployments in Citrix and Terminal Server, which are licensed differently. And if you misunderstand that, you're gonna be at probably non-compliant. Remote access to those Citrix and Terminal solutions from home, or even to your own desktops through a VPN. So I worked for a company that provided access to the actual, on the desktop through a VPN. That's how they did it. I don't know why, but that's an option. But mostly remote access is to either Terminal or Citrix Server. Virtual desktop infrastructure, virtualized Windows 10 or Windows 7 or Windows 8. That is something that you need to also take into account because the licensing rules are different. In Azure or a third-party cloud, and by the way, these are two different scenarios. So third-party cloud and Azure, they're two different scenarios as well. And then bring your own device as well. So that complicates things pretty much. So desktop licensing, when you think about just the traditional premise, as I said, it's extremely simple. It's the simplest. But as soon as you step out of that, and you probably will, and you probably already have, then it becomes a mind-boggling exercise, which now we will try to simplify to you as much as possible. Remember, this is not really a licensing training. We're talking about real-life scenarios and license management and IT management with licenses. So please follow what we're talking today. I'm going to present a few real-life scenarios. We're going to talk through them. And then if your scenario is a bit different, you can either figure it out yourself or just reach out to us and we can discuss your potential scenario. Hi, Angelo. Hello. Nice to see you again in our training. Now, I have a question to you. This is not a test. This is more of an interactive way of talking to you. Do you or your customers, if you're a consultant, still use on-premises traditional Windows and Office, at least partially? And I give you 4 options. Yes, a lot. Yes, mostly. Yes, rarely. And no, not even one VM in the legacy solution, which we forgot that runs some Office 2010 and just one VM. So if you have that one VM, I'd rather you choose the option C, because you can't be half pregnant in licensing. It's almost to say, to have that one virtual machine and to say, we're not using Office 365. Yeah. That's if it's not Office 365, but there's just one VM, it's not like we only using Office 365. No, it's almost like if your wife comes to you and says, honey, I think I might be pregnant. Daryl, I don't know if you want to add to this, because this is more in your area, negotiations.
No, it's interesting to see all the answers coming in, that quite a few are B, at least to start off with, and then we've got a mix. So this is really what we talked about, that there are a lot of organizations out there that just haven't made that move yet to fully 365. So it's either a mix or it's fully traditional. And it just makes things much more complicated to manage. That's why I believe that this is so important. This piece of the training is so important, because what I'm seeing so often these days is that nobody's talking about traditional licensing, traditional on-premise. It's like, that's past. Let's not even discuss that. And if you're not on 365, you're just not important anymore, and your licensing is not interesting. So I believe exactly the opposite. We can't forget about the past. The past is part of us, and the future is where we're going. And the mix is what we need to address. And I'm looking at these answers coming in. We've got quite a few Bs. Yes, mostly still on premise. And then we've got a mix, A, B, and D, meaning everything, and only a few Cs. So interesting to see the usage scenarios that are coming through. Very, very interesting. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I have a story to tell. It's a short one. So every Microsoft or an LSP employee that flip to the side of consulting, they tell exactly the same story every time. I couldn't imagine how much we are in a blue sky dream area when we sell licenses. How much we are, we wear those rose tinted eyes that everything is just about Windows 365, Office 365, Microsoft 365, Azure. When they hit by the reality, it's quite shocking, because yes, as Ivan just sent in one of his messages, he said some customers still using Windows 95, and that's true. And I've just recently, in the SAMexpert, we've just recently helped a company that still runs Windows NT for some purpose. Do you even remember what Windows NT is? Were you even born when Windows NT was released? So, and that is the reality. And they still have the license, and they still have the right to use it, because licenses are perpetual. The product is end of life many, many years already, but the licenses are perpetual. They're licensed to use it, so they're running it at their own risk. Yeah, so it's unfortunately it's just that, well, or fortunately, it's just the salespeople dream that everything is new and modern. It's not. Now let's go to Windows 10 or 11. Windows 11 is going to be released on the 5th of October, either on the 1st of October, which is on just 2 weeks from now, or on the 5th. Microsoft is supposed to update the product terms website with the new licensing rules. Some things are expected to change, and I'll probably mention them, but for now, right now, it's not set in stone until they publish that. Treat everything you hear from us, even from Microsoft, in their blog posts, as a rumor. Don't just remember it now and then use it when you talk to your customers or you calculate your licenses. No, just don't do that. Always treat anything that is not in product terms, anything, even Microsoft licensing guides, as supplementary. You need to refer to product terms. So wait until Windows 11 is released. And I think we will release a video as soon as it's on, which will explain the differences in licensing. Just, it should be named something like Windows 11 licensing or whatnot. So Windows 10. There are three main flavors. There's also an educational, but there are three main flavors that exist that that you probably may be considering buying. Two of these editions come with pre-installed with computers. You buy a laptop, Windows will be probably pre-installed there, and we'll touch on computers where Windows is not pre-installed in this live and all the risks associated. And enterprise, so if you may notice that the Home edition is not available through volume licensing. It may only come pre-installed. And Enterprise Edition may not come pre-installed. It's only available through volume licensing. There's another keyword here in the last row, which is called upgrade. And I have a couple of slides to explain, well, actually more than that, what that means. But basically, if you don't know yet, any license you buy through any volume licensing channel, i.e. Enterprise Agreement, CSP, MPSA agreement, Select Plus agreement, anything that goes through agreements, open, those licenses are upgrade licenses. So a few words of warning about Windows Home before we go into upgrade licenses. So Windows Home, because I used to have this conversations with customers. There's no limitation on commercial use. I mean, you can use it for commercial purposes, but there's a problem. You may not join a domain, if you know what I mean. So you basically don't get centralized management and security of the devices. So the smallest business ready edition is Pro. Don't buy computers with Windows Home for business purposes unless you are a very small business and startup. You don't really need that centralized management and stuff. So at least consider Pro. And then Home Edition may not be stepped up, upgraded to Enterprise. I don't like the word upgraded, but that's what Microsoft uses. I would say stepped up, following their other licensing logic. So Enterprise, unless you are an academic customer, an authorized academic customer. So Microsoft told you, yes, we accept that you are an academic customer. Then you may step up from home. So how this works, Windows upgrade? So you need to have a qualifying operating system. This is an important term. You need to understand that. So sorry for throwing some jargon at you. You need to know that if you want to understand how Microsoft works. Qualifying operating system, in many instances, somebody will say that it shouldn't sound to you as if it was some Chinese language. And then on top of that, you buy Windows Enterprise upgrade through a volume licensing channel, and then you convert that computer into Windows Enterprise. But please remember that Windows Enterprise always requires that computer to come with something. So I don't have this question on these slides, but I just had it recently on LinkedIn. Somebody messaged me and said, what if we buy computers with pre-installed operating system? Then we buy Windows Enterprise. Then we replace these computers with empty computers, because we when we bought it, we had OEM. Can we move the enterprise license to empty computers? No, you may not, because what it requires to be installed. I will touch on that as well. It requires to be installed on the computer. So you may not move it to an empty computer. You may not assign it to an empty computer. It's not possible. So you always have this combination, this sandwich of an OEM operating system and an enterprise upgrade. There's no way around it. So this is the typical configuration. This is what you're going to see in the 99% of the cases. There's going to be Windows Pro OEM pre-installed, bought with the laptops or desktops, and Windows Enterprise that the company deployed because it needs Windows Enterprise advanced security management, administration, and other desktop management features. That's how it's usually done. This slide is your typical representation of a typical customer. So, what about home to enterprise? Well, by mistake you bought home, and you want to step up to enterprise. So, unless you're an academic customer, well, basically you have two options. You may either buy Windows Pro as a retail license. I'm not even sure if it's available. It used to be available. I don't sell retail license. I don't know. Or there's also another license called Get Genuine Windows Advantage, GGWA, which is right now not yet available in the CSP channel. You can buy it through other channels. Talk to your LSP. If you are in a situation when you have Linux computers, you have Windows Home deployed or empty computers, ask your LSP about GGWA licenses. I would go that route instead of Windows Retail.
I want to just quickly note on this, just 1 second. Please be careful when you purchase non-branded computers, that the Windows Professional OEM that you're purchasing is an original Windows OEM, that this basically they not being reused, they have to be original, and they're not counterfeit as well. We've seen so many cases, and although it's less than it used to be, but it's still prevalent. And again, it's usually with non-branded PCs or refurbished. So if you're purchasing a refurbished computer as well, please pay attention. You don't want to find yourself rebuying it or find yourself under license just because of somebody misleading you. So just pay attention to that as well.
It gets a bit more, this sandwich gets a bit more complicated with Windows 10 E3, E5, so online licenses. Well, we still require Windows Pro operating system that comes with the PC. It's still required. And then you have two ways to upgrade to an online license. You may first add the device license, which takes it up to Windows Enterprise to the device, assign that license to the device, and then or you may directly step up to per user. So we'll talk about how you assign licenses in a few slides from now. So that's one of the ways to you can either go enterprise per device, or you can go enterprise per user, or you can go through enterprise per device and then add on. The official term is add-on. There are add-on licenses available in an enterprise agreement only, which can take you to that online from an already discounted, basically. So it's a discounted license. Very useful when you need only to convert some of your users to pay user licensing, not the entire user base. For some reason, only some users need online subscriptions. Go with Addons. If you're stepping up so if you're migrating from a traditional desktop to modern desktop, and if you already licensed users with E3 and then you want to move to E5, in an enterprise agreement you can buy a step-up license. In a CSP you just cancel E3 and buy E5 subscription. That's how it's done. I expect actually step-ups to be made available in CSP because Microsoft is expected to basically almost remove the possibility of monthly adjustments in CSP. There will be a monthly SKU, but it's going to be 20% more expensive than it's right now. So we'll see. This is how it is right now. We're in the moment. So licensing rules. How do you assign licenses? And please bear with me, it's a geeky slide, but you need to understand at least some things that I say now. At least, start thinking about this. So if a license is per device, which applies to traditional desktop and also some E3, E5 online licenses, they may also be purchased as per device. So it's not just the traditional desktop, the per device licensing. So the device to which you assign, as I already said, must be licensed with a qualifying operating system. And the second bit is the qualifying operating system for per device licensing must be installed. So it's not just you assign a license in theory, but it's not really installed there. It must be installed before you convert it to enterprise. It's a requirement. It's written. Why? Don't ask me. Ask Microsoft. With the pay user licenses, so if you assign license to, say, Windows Enterprise E3 or E5 to a user, that user first, before you assign that, before they may use that, must be a primary user of at least one device licensed with a qualifying operating system. So when you think about device, it's a one-to-one. When you think about the user, it's just a user that has multiple devices, but one of them has a pre-installed operating system like Windows Pro, for example. Try to imagine that. I probably need to make it more graphical for the next version of this training, but this is the rule. And the device must also be their primary work device. So what is defined as a primary user? I don't know if that's important or not, because really, in real life, nobody checks it. Primary user is someone who uses a licensed device more than 50% of the time. So imagine if it's shared amongst multiple users. So if somebody is the main primary user who uses that device compared to his co-workers more than half of the time, then they're the primary user of the device. And if that device has a qualifying operating system, then they may be stepped up to that. They may be assigned a per user license for Windows E3, E5. Hope it makes sense. Hope it makes sense, because it's not that simple. Anyway, but you can imagine the leitmotif of this, the main core requirement here is the qualifying operating system. And what is a qualifying operating system? So then again, there are two different lists, and I encourage you to, after this live, or open it in a secondary window right now, product terms. The list for per device is huge. I even didn't copy the entire per user list on this slide because, as I said, it's not an nitty-gritty licensing training. We're just trying to teach you how Microsoft thinks. So when you assign per user licenses, the modern desktop licenses for Windows 10 to your users, what is a qualified OS for them? So if you buy your enterprise licenses through an enterprise agreement or MPSA or open as well. Open. No, let's stick to the slide. EA MPSA. Select Plus as well. That's the third one. You may only upgrade from enterprise or professional edition per device. So you switch to per user from per device. You may only upgrade from enterprise per device or Pro. And that also applies to Windows 7, Windows 8, and Windows 8.1. Notice here that you may not, anything that is prior, like XP, 2000, NT, they're not qualifying operating systems. So you may not upgrade from XP for the per user online license. So you need to upgrade that XP somehow to, I don't know how, assign a GDWA really right, because the reason I don't know, because I've never seen it in real life. But if you encounter this, by the way, just let's discuss it on LinkedIn so we can then discuss this. Your particular scenario, as I said, it's very entangled. Only academics are eligible to upgrade to per user licenses for Windows 10 3.5, and only if they buy enterprise upgrades through the CSP channel. It used to be multiple channels. Nowadays, if you want to buy it today, that's your only option. So if you are, just a quick one for those for geeks, if you are researching some purchases made 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when there were different versions, so what you need to do is you need to find product terms from that time and check what were the requirements at the time. These are the current requirements, but if you're looking at the licenses that have been bought months and years ago, go back to that product terms and check that product terms, because current product terms does not apply to previous licenses. Make sure you know that. Make sure you understand that. It's very important. So, as I said, if somebody of you is upgrading to a licensing geek, this is what this good consultant. This is what you need to know. Product terms come with the license when it was purchased or released. Right. So, with per device, I didn't even bother copying because there are 4 pages of various qualifying operating systems, but there are main points that I can easily explain on one slide. So, similar to per user, if you buy a license through CSP, you may only upgrade to per device Windows 3.5 through CSP only from Windows 10. No upgrades from 7, 8, and whatnot. Which is a bit tricky, because Windows 7, 8, and 8.1 actually have a Windows 10 upgrade advantage. So you may still upgrade them to Windows 10. How does it work? But anyway, the official rules are: if you buy a license through CSP, you may only upgrade them from Windows 10. That's it. That's the only possibility. CSP is very complicated. Now, unfortunately, Carl cannot join. So he's usually here. He's a practicing system integrator admin.
It looks though Alex might have. Okay. So it looks like Alex might have some computer issues. I hope you can still hear me. Let's just give him a second to rejoin. In the meantime, if you've got any specific questions that you want to just post, and then I'll take them in the meantime until he reconnects. Just by the way, can you hear me? I don't have all the controls on my side. Yep. Okay, so you can hear me. Okay. Until Alex comes back, that's fantastic. I don't have the slides, but let me just maybe either take some questions. Some issues are there. Yeah, we know. Let's just out the Windows OS, continue where Alex left off. So there are definitely some challenges that we still see with managing licenses. I think one of the biggest issues is that organizations are not everybody is aware that you actually need an underlying Windows operating system. Now, let's be truthful. Microsoft is almost zero audit. So you could say that, okay, if they're not auditing, then why are we even bothering with compliance and the 7 or 8.1 and the upgrade cycles? I'll say it's very simple. Those are the rules of the game, and Microsoft dictates the rules of the game. That's one. And the second thing is that they might come back with audits. So I don't want anybody to get placed in and say, okay, because nothing's happening, then we don't have to do anything, and we don't have to watch out for those nuances of what we can upgrade and what we can and cannot use. So I know this is issues that people really haven't dealt with in the last 2 to 3 years. It might still come back. So just keep in the back of your mind, especially I think if I look at where the risks are less with the upgrade cycle, from which version you're upgrading, and the complexity of what Alex has been speaking about. It goes back to just purchasing PCs with an OEM license. And if you do that, I think that you, in the majority of cases, even if audits do come back in the future, you're covered. So I think that's a very important takeaway. So I can see Alex has joined us.
Yeah, hi.
Alex?
Sorry,
that's fine.
Despite my efforts with the liquid cooling, my Mac for some reason rebooted, and I'm now curious if I need to buy a new computer. Because this is really worrying me. So where was I? I hope this was all.
So you on the Windows 7 8.1 on-premise upgrades, the desktop per device upgrade.
Qualified
I was just
upgrade.
talking a bit about the importance of attuning to Microsoft's rules. So you just continue from where you were.
Thank you, Daryl. Thank you for stepping in for me when my computer was rebooting. I'm actually quite happy that Restream keeps this live running whilst I was.
No, we were running, so that's fine.
This is fantastic. This is a good thing. We've just learned something good today. So I want to move on to permitted downgrades, because that's another question that people ask. So if you bought a license through an OEM pre-installed, you can downgrade up to down to Windows 7. It's very simple. If you bought an upgrade license through CSP, there are no downgrades. You have to stay on 10. And when Windows 11 comes, will they give us any what was it what I'm looking for? Grace period to migrate to Windows 11. But right now you can't downgrade. And then the third option for licenses is volume license. Volume license can be downgraded to any version, down to NT 95, 98 XP, if you want to, if you need to. So that's how do I buy a Windows 10 computer and run Windows XP on it? This is how you buy a computer with pre-installed operating system, then license it with an enterprise license, then downgrade it to either enterprise or professional. So Windows Enterprise may be down addition to professional. So it's one of those exceptional products which allows some down additions and cross additions. Microsoft very rarely allows exceptions like that. So please pay attention to that. Right, I need to show the slides. I'm not showing the slides. Why am I not showing the slides? I'm really sorry. So this is the one that I was talking about. So OEM can downgrade down to Windows 7, CSP no downgrades, and volume license you can downgrade to any version. So I'll keep it running for a while. Reassignment rights. Reassignment rights. So there's always a question. Okay, computer is broken, or we just want to reassign a license. What can we do? So pre-installed OEM licenses, unless you are in the European Union, which is still unclear to me how that's going to work. Normally, worldwide, there's no way to detach a license from a computer and reinstall it on a different computer. It comes with the computer. It dies with the computer. Then the second thing here, the second column on this slide is upgrade licenses per device. Those licenses you may pre-assign from a device to device only once in 90 days, or if a device is broken. As long as you keep active software assurance on those licenses. when software assurance expires on per device upgrades, they also die with the device. So the reality here, this is the reality. Nobody ever tracks that. So it's up to you to be compliant, to track it, to manage it. Auditors don't bother, but they might one day. So just make sure that you know that. Only once, okay, fine. Once there was an audit I was in where there was a very picky analyst from the Microsoft side who knew licensing better than I do. And he was asking questions like, when was when was this computer bought? And when did you buy Windows license? How did you reassign them if you didn't have software assurance? So he was looking at the dates and digging very deeply. That's basically the main rules. So make sure with the device upgrades enterprise that you keep software assurance on them. If you jumped on that wagon, you can't buy them without software assurance. And licenses that you buy through CSP, they have sort of like not really software assurance, not software assurance, some equivalent rights. So make sure you continue paying. When you stop paying, there are other things that might happen, which you'll cover later in this slide. And if upgrade licenses are per user because they're assigned to user, there's no device assignment. They don't die with devices. They just maybe reassigned normally once in 90 days. The thing with the upgrade license per user is that they are always a so-called OPEX licenses because you always continue paying for them. There's no perpetual option for per user licenses for Windows 10. There are always some kinds of either perpetual plus SA, which you must continue paying, or just software, or just new software assurance, or buy a subscription license. So that's all you can do really. No, sorry, I must retract those words. These the upgrade license per user are always subscriptions. Always subscriptions. I made a mistake. I apologize for that. So let's talk about a few scenarios. So you just want to buy Windows. You know, the simplest scenarios, maybe small business, maybe mid-sized business. I worked with a business that had 25,000 seats. For a few years, I supported their licensing. 25,000 seats. They decided not to upgrade to Windows Enterprise. They were happy with Pro, with additional security packages, third party and whatnot. Pro. What they did, they just bought computers with pre-installed Windows Pro. They may join a domain, they may be centrally managed. No. That's it. So if you want the benefits of the Windows Enterprise, then it becomes a bit more complicated. So I'm jumping from a very simple scenario to a very complicated one, but this is the majority of the companies. So what's on this slide is the majority of the companies. So you need more security management features of enterprise stuff like, and you also want to deploy VDIs, which is Windows 10 virtual machines. You want to also utilize local virtualization right up to 4 virtual machines. You want to use tools from Microsoft Desktop Optimization Pack, additional security administration tools. You know, all these nice features that come with Windows Enterprise. What you need to do then is you still need to buy computers with pre-installed or Windows Pro. You still need to do it. There's no way you can avoid that, as Daryl was talking about when I was offline. Then you must buy upgrades to Windows Enterprise via an enterprise agreement. There's a difference on the next slide. There are differences between EA and CSP. Not all the features that are available through software assurance are available for the same licenses, same plans, Windows 10 3.5 in CSP. So watch out for that. And if needed, if there are any licenses, any VDAs, any devices that are not licensed through Windows, and users of those devices are also not users of not assigned user licenses, so just devices that are not licensed in any other way. And you still need to access virtual desktop infrastructure. You need to buy VDA license either per user or per device. I have a different slide on this. Don't overthink it right now. Take a screenshot of this. Go back to this live when you want to rewatch it. This is the scenario for the majority of the companies. Now, as I said, watch out for CSP differences. Just take a screenshot of the slide. So CSP doesn't give you lots of things that you get through EA. CSP has its benefits, but also these are the differences. Watch out for enterprise agreement requirements because Windows Enterprise and VDA 3.5, those are enterprise products. And there's a minimum quantity that you must buy if you buy them through an enterprise agreement. You want to buy less, don't buy them through an EA. Buy them through MPSA, CSP, MPSA as an option. Depending on availability, because MPSA is being shut down. So buy them through CSP with all the caveats and limitations in mind. But anyway, when you buy them through an enterprise agreement, you may only buy them as enterprise products. And I covered the minimal order requirements in the second live in this training. So please watch that to catch up with that. So in CSP, there are no such requirements. But a couple of things are not available through CSP. So Windows Enterprise per device is not available through CSP, and VDA E5 is not available through CSP either. So just make sure you understand another differences. If you want to migrate some users that you already have an enterprise agreement, all your qualified devices are licensed with Windows Enterprise. So you want to move some of your existing users to Windows E3, E5. Normally, you probably will be moving to the whole online bundle. Office 365 E3, Microsoft 365 E3 is the bundle, basically. So you want to move some of the users. Buy add-ons. So look at product terms. What are the prerequisites for add-ons? And buy add-ons. So that's the cheapest way to switch from per device to per user model. You may also, if you have an enterprise agreement, switch from, add new joining users already licensed with online. You just buy subscription license for them. Simple as that. So enterprise agreement, which is covered in the second part of the training, allows you that sort of flexibility with moving from on-premises to online licenses. So this scenario, you want to add your joiners already to online, just buy straight away by E3, E5 subscription license for those joining people. Windows virtualization. So there are two types of virtualization with Windows 10. First is local. And through software assurance, you get a right to deploy up to 4 virtual machines under one license. So device requires a Windows Enterprise license with software assurance to be able to run up to 4 VMs locally. It's very rarely used, but if you want to use it, this is the way. If without a say, you basically have to assign multiple licenses to one computer. Multiple OEM licenses, by the way. So it's just crazy. Anyway, don't even go that way. So this is the way with local virtualization. And then the other one is like virtualizing Windows 10 in some sort of a remote infrastructure, even on premises. If you run it on the server, it's remote from my desktop. So my desktop is here, it's there on the server. You may virtualize Windows 10 and run it in the server on the server with a few requirements. So user licensed with or device licensed with Windows license with the same access up to 4 Windows 10 virtual machines, Windows 7 virtual machines remotely. So this access requires VDA rights, as I said, either through software assurance or the other way to buy VDA rights if you don't have software assurance, or if you use an iPad to I have an iPad there, an iPad to access the VDI, then you need to assign a VDA license, so-called Virtual Desktop Access License. Servers themselves, this is very important, don't make that mistake. Servers themselves to run VDIs do not need Windows licenses. You don't license the VMs. You license access to the VMs. This is how it works. So just a few more words about VDI. So just the terminology. So VDI is a virtual desktop infrastructure, virtual machines. Whether you call them internally, I've had this during one licensing review, like semi-audit, internal audit. Somebody said in IT, these are not VDIs. These are just virtual machines we run, in our VMware. Guys, if it's Windows 10 or Windows 7, Windows XP, it's a VDI. From the licensing point of view, whether you call it VDI, whether you not call it a VDI, you're almost like that monk that said, I call during the Lent, I call this chicken a fish, so he can eat it. So that's whether he did it, it was still a chicken. So if it's a Windows client virtual machine which is not run locally on a laptop, then it's a VDI for the licensing purposes. And then when you think about how you license access, you need virtual desktop access licenses which give you right to access a VDI wherever that is. So VDI rights are included either in Windows with software assurance or there are specialized, dedicated VDA licenses for non-Windows clients, like iPad. Home clients, which you don't want to license with Windows for some reason. But anyway, these are your two options. So VDA licenses are always subscription licenses. There are no perpetual VDAs, but it's just a detail that you don't really know. Watch out again for CSP differences. I've shown you this slide just in case. That look, that Windows VDI virtualization on premise, on your own service on premise, is not granted through CSP. But if you want to virtualize your VDIs in a third-party data center or access them in Azure, by all means. Only the local virtualization right, so not local, on-premises virtualization right for Windows 10 is not included in CSP. And also, well, local virtualization on the desktop, but that's, as I said, it's very rarely used. So imagine you need virtual desktops, and I've got a few scenarios, and please bear with me. There are no simple scenarios for virtual desktops, because when you need virtual desktops, you're in a complex situation. So, okay, so these are the prerequisites. So that's the goal that you're trying to achieve. You want to keep everything in your data center on premises. Some users will continue using Windows clients, laptops, desktops, to simplify. Some may be using thin clients and iPads, and they will occasionally, and it's a typical situation, typical company, access VDIs from home. So, first point, as I reiterate, do not buy Windows 10 license for the service. You don't need them. You need to license access. And then make sure that each user that is supposed to access VDI has one of the following options, one or another. Either they have a device license with per device Windows SA or VDA. So if it's not a Windows device, it's going to be a VDA license. Or users are assigned VDAs or Windows licenses with SA per user. Per user. So either you license the devices or the users for VDA access rights. This is a very common scenario. Please give us a like on YouTube. Thank you. Right. So a work from home scenario, which is, well, COVID, pandemic. VDI is in your data center, so it's still here somewhere in your office, runs in your office. Users are given company devices because you're sent from home to work from home, and you're given a device to say this is a company device. Use it from home to access our VDIs. But some of them, because that's a very common scenario. Some of them may occasionally log in through VPN and other, Citrix interfaces using their own computers and iPads. Again, I'm only showing you common scenarios that I deal with. So the solution here is do not buy Windows 10 license for the service. I'm going to continue reiterating this because this mistake is made often. For pure company device only access, you may choose either per device or Windows with SA, as in the previous scenario. This the same company on devices, but with a mixed use of company and own devices, I would prefer assigning users Windows license with SA, Windows per user, or VDA access rights. Because when the user has multiple devices, and you never know if they're going to use a company device or their own device. And if you have, for instance, as I said before, how do I convert users from device licenses for Windows to user license? If you have an enterprise agreement, you probably do, buy add-on licenses that convert device to user licensing and makes your life easier in such scenario. This is a very common scenario right now. In our country, in the United Kingdom, we're talking now about potentially another lockdown. So that may happen. At least people are again encouraged to work from home. If there's another work from home scenario, so which is also not very prevalent, but I see it often. So VDI is in your data center. Users use their own devices to access VDI from home, only their own devices. They're not given company devices. This happens more in small businesses, and most of the users have never been given a company device. Go with VDA per user in this. We can argue about this. If you think I'm not right here, please let me know in the comments. We're happy to discuss this. Provide the scenario. So when the hardware on which you deploy, so say you decided, okay, I want to host my VDIs for some reason. If the hardware is dedicated to you, so all the virtual machines on those servers They're only yours. Nobody else is there. It's called dedicated for reasons. It's a single tenant scenario. Then it's exactly as on premises. There's no change. With a caveat though. So in this case, you may use your CSP licenses to run VDIs. On premises, you cannot. In the provider, you can. But then again, all the other rules are exactly the same as an on-premises scenario. So when the hardware is dedicated, when it becomes really complicated is when you want to run VDIs in a shared, like public cloud offering infrastructure. Then it becomes really complicated. So firstly, then again, you don't need to buy Windows 10 licenses to license those VDIs. You don't need to buy them. You don't need to pay anyone. No fees. So what you need to make sure for the VDIs themselves, not the access. So what you need to make sure is, firstly, make sure the provider is QMTH authorized. It's a qualified multi-tenant hosting authorization. So if you Google the list, QMTH authorized providers, you'll download the PDF, which is updated on a monthly basis, which lists all the providers that are authorized to host Windows 10 virtual machines. Not every provider is authorized. There's a very short list. So make sure they are QMTH authorized. I would even discuss it with them that you're going to deploy Windows 10 VM, or they will deploy it for you. Some providers may actually not allow you to deploy your own virtual machines. You have to go through sort of like App Store, Virtual Machine Store. So, and then license users and client devices as per the access requirements as you would do normally. So the caveat here is the provider must be QMTH if you want to run it in a cloud, which is multi-tenant, which is shared, which is what the cloud is. Hope it makes sense. So QMTH authorization is very important. Then again, you don't need new licenses as long as users are licensed for access to VDIs anyhow. CSP works as well, by the way. So Azure scenario. So we have two Azure scenarios. And by the way, spoiler, next slide is going to talk about Windows 365, which I didn't do in the last live. I'm going to do it today. So if you want to use, there are two virtual desktop solutions for Windows in Azure right now since a few weeks ago. One is the traditional one, Azure Virtual Desktop for Windows. The other one is called Windows 365. So this slide is about Azure Virtual Desktop for Windows. It requires quite a lot of admin, additional costs, additional resources, but from the licensing point of view, what you need to do to give users access, the right to access Azure Virtual Desktop for Windows. We're not talking about Windows 365 right now. One of these four licenses must be assigned to users for them to be eligible to access Azure Virtual Desktop for Windows. Windows 365 is different. So there are two flavors, Windows 365 Business and Windows 365 Enterprise. So Windows 365 Business is simple. You just buy Windows 365 Business, but there's a cap of 300 licenses. You just buy those subscriptions to Windows 365 Business, assign them to your users, and that's it. That's all they need. If you want to have more than 300 or more security and management features, then you will be considering Windows 365 Enterprise. Then for 365 Enterprise has prerequisite licenses, which are in the end of the slide. Basically, so the set that is in the middle of the slide it's the components it requires, in addition to Windows 365 license. So user must be assigned 4 licenses at least. 4 components, 4 licenses, like in this set. Not just Windows 365 Enterprise. So Windows 365 Enterprise has prerequisites. Windows 10 Enterprise, Intune, Azure Active Directory P1, P2. Or instead of those 3 licenses, because you also get them through these packages, you may assign them one of the bundle license, which is at the bottom of the slide. So either just individual licenses like in the list, or one of the bundles at the bottom. That is how you license Windows 365, not rocket science. Just remember that the business flavor is simple, just one license. Enterprise requires lots of other things with it. Not if you understand. I can't see you, sorry. So if you're not renewing software assurance on Windows licenses, perpetual licenses that you buy first with software assurance, and then decide, okay, we're not renewing the site. And I've seen this in multiple customers. They just decide, you know what, we have perpetual licenses, we're fine. We don't need upgrade rights. So please remember, it's not just upgrade rights. But firstly, you must stop using features that come with the site. Features like virtualization and VDI, for instance. So you have to either buy some subscriptions again. So if you stop paying for a site, you need to switch to subscriptions, or you need to buy VDA license. But anyway, you need to continue paying to get access to these features. Adopt tools that only come through software assurance in an enterprise agreement. You must stop using them. You must also, if you have a Windows Enterprise deployed to your devices during the term of software assurance, and this is the killer, you must re-image them with Windows Enterprise LTSC, which is, by the way, not supported on some hardware configurations, like, for instance, Microsoft Surface doesn't like LTSC, but you have to. That's what's written in product terms. SA expires, you need to re-image your entire 50,000 computers. Watch that. What you may also do is you may roll back to, and by the way, LTSC doesn't receive semi-annual upgrades. So it's a version that's updated like once in 5 years. So you may roll back to Pro to continue getting semi-annual updates, but one thing to remember is you may not continue running Enterprise semi-annual channel when software assurance expires. You may not do that. Do not just blindly, and that happens. People, when they don't understand Microsoft licensing, and they think software assurance is just upgrade rights or just some sort of like technical support. What they don't understand is this: by canceling SA, they're shooting themselves in the foot because they've already deployed something that requires SA, and this is very important. And another thing, the licenses, the peer device licenses, are become glued to computers. You may not move them around, shift them around. So when you cancel SA. If you want to cancel a site, if you want to stop renewing software assurance, talk to an SME about the consequences of that and how you can keep using some of the features you still require in the cheapest possible way. Ask us, come to us, we can answer you. So I touched quickly on the Windows so-called channels. So there's a semi-annual channel, so you get updates every half a year. Rumor has it that Windows 11 will only be updated once a year, not twice a year. So it's going to be like an annual channel. And there's a long-term servicing channel, which is very stable, which is used for something where you don't need, you need more stability than current upgrades. So I have lots of points here on the slide, which I want to emphasize. Yeah, so perpetual Windows Enterprise requires software assurance for semi-annual channel. As I said, software assurance ended, you must roll back to LTSC. Unfortunately, you can't keep semi-annual channel if you don't have software assurance. If so, companies that want to cancel software assurance but continue using semi-annual channels will have to roll back to professional, to Windows 10 Professional. That's the only option. Right. Daryl, would you like? There are 2 questions. Would you like to do the questions?
Yeah, please. You take a second to take a breather. So let's start off with this question. Your IT department wants to procure laptops with pre-installed Linux operating systems. It's cheaper, of course. Why not save a few dollars? But plans to image them with Windows Enterprise. What do you think is the answer? Good idea? Savings are good. Let's just go forward and use the enterprise upgrade licenses we have. Or maybe it's a bad idea. Let's hear what your thoughts are. Pre-installed Linux operating system. Good idea, bad idea if procurement wants to save some dollars for the company.
Hi, Andrew. I didn't say hi. Yeah.
Okay, we're getting in some answers. I'm not going to... Come on. We would love to see some participation to give you an opportunity to shake up a bit, wake up if you've fallen asleep. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for staying with us. It's you can probably see by now that Microsoft desktop licensing is not simple.
No, it's actually damn sorry for swearing, damn complex stuff.
We can actually move to the next question because I have CDE.
Yeah, I can see we're getting the answers. Yep, let's move forward, and then Alex, you can address
them. I've got CDE here.
Okay, fantastic. So next question: you procure Windows E3 or E5. Okay, we've already moved over E3, E5. We per user in the CSP channel. Okay, CSP channel. Your IT wants to virtualize Windows Enterprise on your own VDI hardware. What are your options? So, number one, you need a Windows license for each virtual machine. It's going to be C, D, or E. Just watch your answers. D, a Windows or VDA license for each user. E, nothing. It's not allowed. Okay, I'm going to repeat the question. You procure Windows E3, E5 in the CSP channel. Your IT wants to virtualize Windows Enterprise on your own VDI hardware. What do you need? C, a Windows license for each virtual machine. D, a Windows or VDA license for each user. E, nothing. It's not allowed.
We're getting
Alex,
D's.
you want to just address the first question and then move over to the second question?
So everybody gave B the answer to the first question. Let me roll back to it quickly so everybody sees the question. It's a bad idea, obviously, because you need to buy computers with pre-installed Windows Pro to be able to upgrade to Enterprise. So that B is the correct answer. We get a lot of D's coming in on this slide, and I didn't expect it to be easy. The correct answer is E. Why? Because when you procure this license through CSP, and I especially put CSP channel here, you do not get VDI virtualization rights on your own hardware.
So what's the solution? If you want to do that, Alex, what do you have to do?
Nothing. No, I'm not kidding. I'm not nothing.
You're in trouble. Or you can just
you need to start thinking about either using Azure Virtual Desktop or Windows 365, or actually you can still deploy it on your own hardware if you move that rack to your provider. Then by all means you can do that, but not on premises. So the correct answer here is E, and this is the downside of CSP, which I'm not sure. I'm expecting Microsoft to actually stop doing this rubbish things with CSP, because for some reason they're still kind of suffocating the channel that the other hand. So the left hand is suffocating CSP, the right hand is trying to promote it. They really need to get their stuff together. Anyway, so Microsoft Office applications, a bit simpler than Windows 10, but not that simple either. So just to remind you, so what I'm talking about. So the traditional desktop, these are Office Project and Visio with various editions: Office Professional Plus, Office Standard, Project Professional, Visio Standard, Visio Professional. At the modern desktop, we're talking about the online equivalents of the same licenses. So again, watch out for enterprise agreement requirements. If you buy them through, if you buy Office Professional Plus, not any other products, just Office Professional Plus, that's an enterprise product, and you must follow the rules of the minimum order requirements. You can't buy less. You want to buy less, you want to buy fewer, use a different licensing agreement. So that is the traditional Office Professional Plus. And by the way, when I say about Office Professional Plus, I follow a convention that is created by Microsoft, but not really well known. Consultants pass it on one to another. You know why? To be able to speak quicker, to understand each other quicker without explanations. So there's Office Pro Plus and Office Professional Plus. Office Professional Plus is that old traditional Office Professional Plus 2016, 2019, 2000, XP. That is XP was a Professional Plus. It started from 2010. So that Professional Plus is full professional, the full word professional. That is used in our conversations and with Microsoft as well when we talk about traditional Office, which will probably be released in this year again, either as Office 2021 or Office 2022. And then when we say Pro Plus, that shorter version, we say when we refer to Office applications, that you install locally on your computer that you get from through one of the 365 online subscriptions. So I encourage you to. I also when I talk to people, I try to stick to that convention. I encourage you to understand this, to remember this convention. If you want to do, if you're just a procurement, you don't care about it. Don't forget about it. If you want to do a bit more licensing research, then please stick to this convention. Yeah, well, the other names, I will say them out loud. Actually, let me scroll back. The other names for the Pro Plus is Click to Run, Office Click to Run. That's again 365 or just Office 365. It's all the same thing. So licensing rules are different to Windows. You can't take Windows licensing rules and apply them to Office and vice versa. They're different. Different product groups created their own licensing rules of the game. So per device licenses, the rules are core rules. There are more, but the core rules are licensed device may run any number of instances of the licensed edition. We discussed it with a friend of mine today, and he basically said you may run multiple virtual machines of Windows on your local laptop and use various flavors of Office, as long as it's the same edition. You're covered with one license assigned to the device. Very rare scenarios, but it's a thing. It's a thing if you want to do that. There's no cross edition for any Microsoft Office applications. You may not use a Professional Plus license to license a standard copy or vice versa. Companies make that mistake. They buy Professional Plus and they run standard under that license. That's not allowed. You must have standard licenses. So you're non-compliant in that case. If you want to run server instances, you have to license every authorized client that may potentially access that server instance. That even not Microsoft say. So Microsoft have a bit of a dual approach here. In their licensing guides, they say devices intending to access. In the audits, they just ask to license every device that is authorized, while there are no limitations for that device to, even in theory, maybe in 3 years from now, once access that Office, you have to have a license. So client licenses, not server instances, When it's a per device licensing, you must license the end client. And when it's per user, so Office 365, we're talking about Office 365. So please pay attention that Office Professional Plus, the traditional Office, is only licensed per user. Only. Sorry, per device. Is only licensed per device. No per user option for traditional Office. There's no per user option. And then, as usual with Microsoft, there's a caveat, and we'll come to that. There is a per user option, but it's not on premises, not on your normal scenario. And then the per user license for Office 365. Please remember that not every plan permits installation of local apps, but Microsoft will prevent you from doing so anyway. You won't be able to run it. But just remember that if you want to run local apps on laptops, if you want to deploy them to laptops, make sure that you procure the licensing plan for Office 365, for Microsoft 365, that includes Office applications. If it doesn't include, you won't be able to install them and activate them. You'll probably be able to install them, but you won't be able to use them. It'll just refuse running. Like it happened to my wife's desktop until I figured out how to activate her copy. It was just not opening Outlook. And then for server instances, you may deploy Office 365 on a server, in a terminal server, and it is not plagued with this complexity of the per device licensing. It's just per user, so it's simple to manage. But then you must make sure that the users that you intend to give access to that copy have shared, in their plan, they have shared computer activation rights. I believe, so good question from Mahesh. I believe M365 apps for enterprise and Office 365 Pro Plus are the same. Yeah. Yes. And then Jitendra, can we install both Office Pro 2019 and Microsoft 365 with 3 licenses on the single device? Whether this is allowed from compliance perspective? There is one exception when you can do this. There is one exception when you can do it. Because, well, firstly, it's not technically possible to run them side by side. But there's one exception when you buy a specific flavor of Microsoft 365, not Office 365, Microsoft 365, E3 or E5, FromSA, that allows you to install one local copy per each licensed user of Office Pro 20. Not Office Pro. Please use the convention, Office Professional 2019, the traditional. Yes, you may install it under MS365, E3 or E5. I have a slide for that, so I'll explain it better. So let's move on. Just to explain, local copy, because it's a per device license. Whichever user's license it, the device is already licensed for Office. Therefore, this is how you use it. So any user, you just need one license here. It's simple. With a remote copy, it becomes complicated. So fortunately for this particular subject, I have slides from the first part of this training. So you have a remote desktop solution. It could be through the cloud, even locally in the office. So I have a cloud here. But anyway, you have Office deployed per device, deployed on a server in a remote desktop configuration, or on a VDI, not necessarily even in the server environment. Just some sort of a virtualized Office, Professional Plus, traditional. It's a desktop license. What do you license? Not the server. You don't license the server. You license every device, not the user again. You license every device that may, in theory, be granted access to that server. So, and then, which when I say every device, that also includes if there's a potential that I can access that copy from this phone needs a license for Office Professional Plus. How great is that? So this is a graphical representation of what I said. There's no right to use lower edition. There's no down edition. So you must, the license, the same applies to Project and Visio. License must correspond. Running edition and the license must completely correspond. Permitted downgrades. Then again, completely unlike Windows 10. So in traditional, regardless of the channel as well, traditional Office applications can be downgraded to any version. Online applications allow no downgrades. So it's not per channel, it's per licensing model. Simple. A few scenarios. So you need to Office on the server. I'm going to talk about desktops. Desktops, you just install an Office and you assign a license. If it's a per device license, assigned to a device. If it's a per user license, assigned to a user. So we're not talking about that one. Let's talk about complicated stuff. So on-premises scenario number 1. Office Professionals Plus or Standard per device. So the traditional ones. Look at the names. There's no standard in online. It runs on the server or in a VDI in your own data center on your own hardware. Users are only using company devices or company iPads. Very strict requirement. No personal devices at all. So just the company devices, which is a pretty common scenario when companies usually allow people to bring their own devices. So normally this is restricted. The more serious the company is, the more BYOD will be restricted. BYOD stands for bring your own device, or disaster, as some say. So the solution here is this: you need to implement the solution limiting access per device, and I have this in very large, friendly orange letters. Active Directory groups do not manage devices. Why I put it in red is that in every review I had with the customer, and still having, they have some Office Professional Plus or Standard deployed in Citrix. And I asked them, do you control which devices have access to that copy? Say, yeah, we have Active Directory groups. I mean, it's a ubiquitous answer. I don't even have to guess. I can put my money on it, I'm going to win. That's the response I get. Do you control which devices access? What they respond with, I translate you to human language. Yes, we control access per user. This is not what I asked. My question was, do you control access per device? Active Directory group, control access per user. So they don't work. You need a third party. You need some sophisticated, complex solution to be able to control access per device. Otherwise, what auditors say, it used to be very hardly enforced. These days, it's really, to be honest, it's rarely enforced, but Microsoft will use it as a negative thing when you sit down at the negotiation table and start discussing your discounts. They're going to remember that and say, you are not following the rules of licensing. So then, after you've tie down somehow, if you figure out how, then you initialize every authorized device for the access edition, either and version as well. So either professional or standard. So that's how you license traditional Office or project or Visio in a Citrix or terminal server environment. Scenario number 2 with work from home. So again, traditional. We're talking about traditional Office. Very much like previous scenario. So I'm not going to read the whole slide. When we're talking about BYOD means bring your own device on premises. So I take my laptop. Anyway, that laptop, I'm not going to touch it. Take my laptop, bring it onto the company's premises. When I bring in the licensing rules for that laptop, for that Office, is exactly the same as it was for the company device. So I just need an Office license for that laptop, full Office license through the enterprise agreement or however. I need the full Office license for that laptop. When it's still my laptop or desktop or something else, but I use it from home, it's different. So you have 2 options here. You actually used to have 3. Nowadays it's just 2. A license each home device with work at home license. And for work at home license, you have to, I haven't had the question, but it's very complicated. You can only buy work at home license if you have a corresponding qualifying license for it. So it's like an add-on. So somebody already has a company device and they have Office 2019 Professional Plus license assigned to that device, but they're now working from home. Company said, work from home, we're not going to give you device, use your own. Then they may use Windows from home discounted license, which the company buys for them, and they assign it, again, per device. It's not a per user license. Another option is actually, if that Office that is installed on their primary devices in the company devices is covered with active software assurance. This is mind-boggling. Is covered with active assurance, then they don't need work from home license. It's called roaming use rights. So even Microsoft themselves, they started removing the roaming use rights explanations from all their guides. It's difficult to find any. I have one. If you want one, just send me an email to ask@SAMexpert.com, the email that we have on the on the top of the slide, and I'll send you that Microsoft guide because it's not even Googleable, so you can't find it. Well, there's a third option. Company can actually buy full Office license for that home device, which I didn't include on this slide because it's ridiculous. Usually the companies I work with go with the roaming use rights option. They continue maintaining software assurance on their Office licenses. Therefore, all the users that have company devices licensed with it, then they also can access it from any other qualified third-party device. Don't go that deep. It's a rabbit hole. So if you want on premises again to virtualize Office 365, put it on a terminal server in a Citrix, Office 365, then really it's on a server on VDI in your data center, use a mixture of devices. Doesn't really matter. Really, it's just all you need to do. See how simpler it gets with Office 365. You all need to do is assign each user a license with shared computer activation rights. Just make sure you assign them a proper package with shared computer activation. Good question, Charmaine. Do you have a certificate for what? Can you please clarify? Right, Jitendra, I'll pick your question just a bit in the end when we're going to be answering the questions. So asking you the questions and then I'll answer yours. Right. Then another scenario, provider scenario. So you want to deploy any office, traditional or 365 Pro Plus on a server or a VDI on a hardware that's dedicated to you. Please remember that dedicated hardware equals on premises for the majority, for 99.9% of the rights. So in this case, just follow on premises rules. But there also, because it's on the provider's estate, you have an option. So if you don't have licenses, if you don't have device licenses for all the devices that access those virtualized copies of Office Professional Plus or Office Standard on the dedicated hardware in a third-party data center, if you don't have device licenses, you may ask the provider to bill you for monthly user access licenses. They're called SALs, subscriber access licenses. And by the way, going back to the question, so nowadays when somebody asks me, what can we do? We have this solution which we can't limit access per device to. Microsoft is chasing us again. You have to switch to Office 365. We don't want to. We want to keep our traditional Office. We want to keep this solution in the terminal server. With the old Office Standard 2010, we have to keep Office Standard 2010. Our business runs on Office Standard 2010. I have a customer like that. So my advice to them is, take this dedicated hardware, this dedicated solution, find a colocation provider and move it there. It's still your hardware, but then you can ask that provider to charge you per user. Yes, you will be paying more. You will have additional costs, but you will be compliant. That's an option. And when you only have a fraction of your users requiring that solution, not the entire company, that's a cheaper option than potentially bearing consequences of millions and millions in audit fees. So think about that. So, but when it comes to multi-tenant, remember I told you QMTH. So QMTH is not required when you need to deploy Windows Standard or Windows Professional Plus, which is any SPLA provider in a shared virtual machine. Here you have the only option to pay monthly fee per user via SPLA. So any SPLA provider, not QMTH, really. Just monthly fee. There's an Office Professional Plus monthly SAL. There's an Office Standard monthly SAL. And by the way, I think my computer is going to reboot in a few seconds. So Daryl, please make sure you're ready to support me, because the fan is
I'll
spinning.
improvise, don't worry.
The fan is spinning like mad right now. I don't know what affected it, but something affected it. So if you want to run any online applications in a shared multi-tenant environment, in a public cloud, in a third-party public cloud, then you need to check if the provider, again, is QMTH authorized, because Windows 10 and Office 365 on Project Online, Visio Online, they can only be run through on QMTH providers in shared infrastructure. And basically, you don't need any extra license, no fees to that provider. You need to make sure your users are licensed. QMTH just authorizes them to basically authorize you to deploy that in their data centers. Office 365 add-ons. Remember I told you if you want to just move some of your devices to per-user model, same applies to Office 365. You want to switch from on-premises to cloud, but not the entirety of the company, there you go. So just buy add-on licenses. Add-ons are only available in an enterprise agreement. There's no such option in CSP. And then you can basically just get the right. When you have both of these licenses, SA is still current, you have an add-on, then you have this, you have a user switch to Office 365 online. Again, for gradual migration, gradual adaptation of Office 365, when you're migrating from your traditional configuration, you may not want to. The question that was asked in the chat, so Microsoft 365 FromSA, not Office 365 FromSA, please pay attention to that, only Microsoft 365 FromSA, the bundles, only 3 and the 5, only them, may deploy Office, so users licensed with that bundle may deploy a local copy, local, not server, no server virtualization rights, no remote access rights, one local copy on their primary device. License do not cover terminal server instances and terminal server access, just local. Why that's done? For migration, for compatibility issues. That's why. So watch out, it's very often misunderstood. Very often the companies think, oh, it's just like a free-for-all, free ticket for all. No, it's not. So Project and Visio. So rules are almost the same. The Project and Visio have this unique right as well. You may actually, so this really, again, it depends on the package. So either Project Plan 3 or 5 or Visio Plan 2, you may install traditional binaries, executable files under an online license. But the caveat is the device on which you install it, again, just one copy, the device on which you install must be running, not just licensed, must be running Office Standard or Office Professional Plus. Because this exception is granted to those companies that still run old Office, but want to switch to online versions of Project and Visio. The binaries are not compatible, you can't run them on the same computer. Daryl, would you like to pick this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So your IT department deploys 120 VDIs with Office Professional Plus. Any VDI user has access to any of the 810 company laptops and thin clients. How many Office Professional Plus licenses do you actually need? A, 120. B, 810. C, it's complicated. Type your version in the chat. Meaning, if you think that is another answer, share it with us.
Jitendra, your question, do we allow to install traditional license? So you don't install a license. A license are assigned, you probably mean install traditional Office Professional Standard 2019. So only Professional Plus, as I just explained, and only if M365 E3, E5 is a FromSA stock keeping unit. So you bought it as FromSA. It must be in the product name, in the product description when you bought it. It must be FromSA. I explain when you can buy FromSA in the part 3 of this training, which is available on this channel as recording. So Charmaine, I think if you ask, certificate, do you mean do we certify for Microsoft licensing? We plan to. So if this is your question, we plan to certify for Microsoft licensing after you watch all the 8 parts of the training. And in the description, there's a link to the Eventbrite page. When we have your email address, we're going to send invitations to those who registered on Eventbrite to pass a test. The test will be tough. We're following in the steps of redress compliance. We don't want to make it simple. We don't want to make it cheap. You must earn it. Which will be, I think we're thinking about maybe 80 questions. So tough test. But when you pass it, we're going to issue a SAMexpert certificate, which is not an official Microsoft certificate. It's going to be ours. Which will...
Alex, I think that it's a tough question, and the people are apprehensive to answer it. So why don't you just give it a shot?
Right, interesting. Maybe they just watch with the delay and we're not getting the messages in the chat. But okay, so the correct answer here is 810. Because as I said, it doesn't matter how many VDIs you run, 10,000. You need to license either users or devices. So with Office Professional Plus, you may only license devices because it's a Professional Plus. Therefore, you need to license every client. It's not a VDA. The answer is B. The answer is B. It doesn't matter how many Office instances you run. It matters how many clients may access that Office. And in this case, 810. There's no complication. It's a very simple answer. So I deliberately put it's complicated to make it difficult to answer. So very few slides. We're getting very close to the end, but please bear with us. A few slides talking about Microsoft desktop bundles. To remind you, part of the slide that I've shown at the very beginning, we have 2 types of bundles. So traditional desktop bundles were called they're still called Professional Desktop and Enterprise Desktop. Microsoft won't tell you about them, but you may buy them. The reason they won't tell you about them because now Microsoft people are not recognized, therefore not monetarily rewarded, not paid as a bonus for selling licenses. But you may still buy them. If you ask, you may not probably be given a discount, but you may still buy them. So Professional Desktop and Enterprise Desktop, and I have next slide to explain what they are. And in the modern desktop, we have various flavors, various packages of Microsoft 365 with fancy names like you've probably heard already in this live, E3, E5, also F1, F3, and whatnot. And you buy them for an additional discount, as I said before. So traditional bundles, you may notice on the slide, the only difference between them is what's the client access bundle included in that package. All the other components are the same. Office and Windows is exactly the same. Only the packages are different. So about client access bundles, please come to the next live in 2 weeks from now when we're going to be talking about Microsoft Server licensing, all the Microsoft servers. We will touch lightly on Azure because you can't avoid that. But if you want to learn Azure licensing, watch our third part of this training. We talk a lot about Windows licensing and Azure and the training, but we're going to, again, touch it from a migration perspective, connection with the on-premises in the next training. So, we'll talk about client access licenses there, because client access licenses, as we described in the first part of the training, is the bridge between your clients and the servers, and many servers still require you to also to be licensed to access that server, not just the server license. And by the way, on this channel, I already cut out that part from the first training and put it as a separate video, which is called Client Access Licenses Explained. So please watch it after this, when we finish this session. Microsoft 365 also, this is not the entire screenshot. It actually would take multiple slides. It's a very detailed table with differences between various bundles and what's included. So I turned it horizontally. Usually it's vertical. You have bundles on top and then the components on, horizontally, because that's a very long list of components. But what you need to pay attention to on this slide is, firstly, which bundles have client apps if you want to deploy them to desktops, because those that don't only give you access to online Office 365. So you can't run locally. Shared computer activation, only 3 and 5. It's for the terminal server usage. If you want to deploy your Office 365 in the terminal server, you must go with these two packages only. And then other differences like user limit, primary device screen, they're not really relevant right now. So for the desktop management part, just pay attention to where client apps are provided and which packages have shared computer activation. You may also pay attention to where Windows 10 is included as well, because not on every package you get Windows 10. And this is the last question for today.
Yeah, so let me take this. Answer A or B. May users assigned Microsoft 365 Business Premium use Office 365 apps installed in a virtual server in a QMTH provider? Again, may users assigned Microsoft 365 Business Premium use Office 365 apps installed in a virtual server in a QMTH provider? A, yes. B, no. Okay, this is not on-premise in your own server environment. This is a QMTH provider.
It's a bit of a tricky question. You should have paid attention to the previous slide to answer it properly.
A or B? Give us your best, your educated guess. Let's just get some interaction. Come on. I know it's been almost 2 hours.
We have B from Ivan.
Let's get the brain cells working again.
First B from Ivan.
Thank you, Ivan. Olivia,
I'm not sure if she was answering this question or the other one. Olivia said A. Okay, I won't keep you in limbo because I think some of you have already typed it. It's just we have a delay. So if I go back here, Business Premium doesn't have shared computer activation. So it doesn't matter even if it's a QMTH provider on premise anywhere else. You may not access it in a remote scenario. That was the thing that you needed to pay attention to. And thank you very much for staying with us. Come again in 2 weeks' time to the server licensing, Datacenter licensing session, and visit our website. Come to our. Please like this video, subscribe, follow, and the typical stuff. So, but mostly, I'm really grateful that you are here today. We actually have a very good answer from Sandeep Kumar to the last question. I put it on screen because I like it.
And let's just talk about. Just mention that next week we've got a different subject. If you want to join the live, we'll be talking about the role of culture differences, multicultural differences in a Microsoft or generally in a global negotiation. So if you are part of a global negotiation team, procurement team, or if you are from the sales side, it's going to be a very interesting live session. So please join us next week as well.
Yes. So how you can find that session? So either if you're subscribed to this channel, just go to the channels page, and there's a. Can I actually show it? I'm just thinking, or not, or will my computer crash?
And if you like this session, please give us a thumbs up on YouTube. We really appreciate it.
The shortcut to our channel is actually SAMexpert.tv. You just type in SAMexpert.tv, it takes you to our channel. SAMexpert TV. This is the channel's name. And then if you go to upcoming lives, where are they? So we have the member only. We have membership as well. Member only videos. I just archived some videos, made them member only because they don't make sense to keep them public. So upcoming lives, it's actually the first one. So here there's a button called set reminder. If I click set reminder, it says reminder on. So if you're subscribed, this is how we get reminders. So the other option is to go to our LinkedIn page, LinkedIn.com/company/SAMexpert, and there you'll have actually I think I can do view as member. So the way it's going to look to you. There you can go to events, and here are all the events, and this is the first one basically. So you click on it, and you click. There'll be an attend button here. So yeah, please join us. Whichever option is better for you. Next week, so next week we have this corporate and global culture considerations. And then in the week after, we have Microsoft Datacenter licensing stuff. Anyway, you can see all our upcoming shows on this channel, and you can set reminders. Just make sure you're subscribed. Thank you, Jitendra. Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, Mahesh. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Cheryl. Please come again. Please watch the previous parts of the training if you haven't watched them yet, because the narrative in this training is. We first explained the simple things, and now we can refer to what we explained already. So we would expect you to find time to watch the entire training, which in total will be 16 hours for free. Daryl, thank you very much for helping me today again. It's really appreciated. Much easier than to do it all just on my own. Especially thank you for keeping the crowd alive when I was rebooting. So yeah, I'll show you guys. This is my liquid cooling solution. The ice has already melted. That's why, by the way, that's why it was so golly, it's so hot. It's not only just melted, the water is warm.
I think, Alex, we need to talk about a better solution.
Yes, I need, if somebody, by the way, somebody here is a computer geek, if you know how to, what I'm thinking about is, I haven't found it yet, is a solution to put some sort of liquid cooling on top of the MacBook Pro, which will not be too noisy. Yeah, some sort of like with adapt something. I need to find it on YouTube. But if you've already seen something like it, please let me know, because I think it's important. Otherwise, we're going to be having these troubles in every life. Well, I need a bigger bucket with ice. Yeah. Right. On this
Alex,
fantastic note.
Yeah.
Thank you, Daryl. Yeah. On this fantastic note, I hope you learned something today.
I learned something new, as always. Each session, there's always something new to learn. And I want to thank everybody for joining and staying for the duration of the training. Hope to see you next week and on our next trainings. And as Alex pointed out, if you've got some time, review the previous trainings and our other and additional YouTube videos. So thank you, Alex. Pleasure as always.
Thanks, everybody. Okay, on this fantastic note, I'm going to finish this live, and as usual, safe with knowledge of Microsoft licensing.
Thank you.